Welcome back to the channel. You're watching Sawtooth Tactical. What is your go-to rifle? What's your go-to rifle setup? Do you have a dual rifle? Is there even such a thing? Today we're going to go over my go-to rifle and why this one specifically would be my go-to compared to a lot of the other ones that I have that I absolutely love. And bonus, we're also going to talk about go-to pistol and belt setup. And the reason why is this. I am not a conspiracy theorist by any means, but it'd be hard not to notice some of the crazy things that are going on in our country right now, and it only makes sense to be prepared just in case. So if that's interesting to you, make sure you're subscribed, and let's begin. Deciding on a go-to rifle and a go-to pistol was actually not an easy decision to come by. I have a bunch of rifles that I really like and that I trust. And I also have a pistol that I like even more than this one that I also really trust. But there are reasons for the choices I've made, and we're gonna get right into it. So my go-to rifle is the Dream rifle build that I did. And the biggest reason for that is just the quality of the parts used. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with Smith & Wesson. My PSA did have a bolt break. And so those are the kind of things where, I used to really trust that gun until the bolt broke. It's got a new bolt in it. I totally trust it now. But it has made me rethink what you can totally trust. And as much as I'd love my suppressed 300 Blackout Short Boy to be my go-to, it's very versatile that you can run supersonic and subsonic ammo in. I do think that if shit hit the fan, my go-to would have to be a 5.56 AR. And while I probably, I usually like shorter barrels than this. This is a 14.5 inch pinned and welded. I do think that when it comes down to it, this is the rifle that I would want on me if I had to deal with a zombie apocalypse, world-ending type of situation. Now, hopefully, nothing like that ever happens, but there's nothing wrong with being prepared. So, getting right into that, why is my rifle set up the way that it is? And first of all, when we talk about quality of parts, I don't necessarily mean price. You can get a very high quality rifle without spending as much as I did on this. You can get just a complete BCM and you're gonna have a great gun. You can build a rifle for a lot less than this, but quality parts that are gonna last and that they're gonna work no matter what kind of situation you find yourself in. And speaking of BCM, I do trust BCM. My bullet carrier group is Bravo Company, BCM. My gas block is BCM. There's a reason for that. I think that they make components that are just going to keep working. And so some of the components that I needed to make sure would just keep working are BCM for that reason. The barrel is a Roscoe barrel. I've had nothing but good luck with Roscoe barrels. And the buffer system is a Geisley buffer system. Now those are the main parts of your gun that make it run, that keep it reliable. And I made sure, I didn't go with the most expensive parts, but I made sure that I went with tried and true parts that are gonna keep working no matter what. I'd like to thank Aura, which is the sponsor of this video. Firearms can protect you and your family and your household from a lot of threats and provide you with a certain amount of security. Well, Aura can provide you with security from the things that you don't see and protect you from those threats. I've been using it for a few months now. When I first got it, I Googled my name and there was a lot of stuff that came up. And then I signed up with Aura and I watched as they took each and every one of those things off of the internet so that my information wasn't out there anymore. They do a lot of things, including identity and credit monitoring, password manager, antivirus protection. They have a VPN, home title monitoring, and then the big one is data broker removal. As you guys probably already know, scammers are a huge part of life now, which really sucks. But the way that they get your information is from data brokers. And Aura goes out there and they find those data brokers that have your information and they submit opt-out requests on your behalf, removing your information off the internet so that scammers don't have access to you anymore. The big thing that it's helped me with is I don't get spam calls anymore, and I've noticed that over these last few months that I've been using it. I just have stopped getting spam calls. If you want to support this channel, Sawtooth Tactical, the best way to do that is to sign up for Aura. You get 2 weeks free if you use my link, which is aura.com/sawtooth-tactical, and then it's only $12 a month for all of those things that I listed earlier. I really appreciate what Aura has done for the channel. And I appreciate that they sponsor firearms related channels. It says a lot to me about who they are. I value my privacy and I also value yours. Now, besides those main, like your drivetrain parts that keep your rifle running, why did I choose the rest of the components that I have on this gun and the way that they're set up? Well, for one, even if you look behind me on my other guns, they're mostly all set up pretty much the same way. Optics, they each have a little bit different optics setup depending on what the purpose of that gun is. 16-inch, I got a 1:6 LPVO and an offset red dot. 11.5-inch, red dot with a flip to the side 3x magnifier. 300 blackout, 8-inch, just a 1x red dot optic, but with a big window, and a circle dot donut of death reticle. 14.5-inch, I could have gone LPVO on this, but I specifically went with the EoTech and magnifier setup, and I'm really glad that I did. I don't do a whole lot of really, really long range shooting, and hopefully in, zombie apocalypse kind of thing, hopefully I wouldn't need to shoot out past like 500 yards with this setup. Although I know it can be done. But what I have found is that 200 yards and in, I'm actually better with this, with the 3x magnifier, than I am with my LPVO. And I think part of it just has to do with optic and glass quality. So, quality of components. That's very important. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean expensive, although to an extent, you do get what you pay for with most things in life, but especially with gun parts. I know that what I said was a little bit of a contradiction when I said that quality doesn't necessarily mean expensive, but you do get what you pay for. So don't cheap out on the components that really matter. But at the same time, you don't need the most expensive Gucci shit. And that's kind of what I mean. There are much more expensive EoTechs. This is the XPS model, not the EXPS. This is the cheaper EoTech, basically. But of course I put them on the expensive mounts. And there's a reason for all that, and we're gonna get into all that. But let's kind of go, like Garantham, tip to butt, and why I made the decisions that I made, and hopefully maybe it can help you make your own decisions. So the first thing is the muzzle device, and I chose a 3-prong flash hider. Now, in the past, I've used like brakes and comps on a lot of things to help control recoil and muzzle rise. But I was also not as good of a shooter back then, and I can actually control recoil better now than I could when I put those guns together. Besides that, if this is a gun that ever needs to be used in a serious situation, a flash hider is probably what you want. Signature reduction. You don't want people to know where you are. But the other big thing about this muzzle device is that it is a QD for a suppressor. And I do have an OCL, Otter Creek Labs, Polonium K on the way. This is the ASR system. I've already got the Bravo mount for it. And so that was the biggest reason for this muzzle device. It is pinned and welded on a 14.5-inch barrel. Now, I wanted to go as short as I could with this gun without having to make it a 2-stamp gun. One stamp being the suppressor, the other stamp being a short-barreled rifle. Now I could have gone 13.7, 13.9, but I really wanted to use this Geissele handguard specifically, and they don't make it in 13-inch anymore. They make it in 13.5-inch. And so really I had to go with the 14.5-inch barrel. To be legal, you have to pin and weld that to make it 16 inches. I made a video recently about how ridiculous that is, but it is the case. And so this is pinned and welded. Going back from the muzzle device, we have a Roscoe barrel with a mid-length gas system. Now the mid-length gas system was very important to me. For one, so because I'm not using a brake, I'm using a flash hider, I wanted to make this gun softer shooting. Softer shooting doesn't just make it more comfortable to shoot, but it makes it easier to get rounds off faster and stay on target. Mid-length gas system with the buffer system that I have set up here, Geissele Super 42 H1. I tried an H2, but this barrel is very lightly gassed. An H2, it wasn't quite reliable. So I had to make it an H1 buffer with the Geissele Super 42 braided spring. And now it is 100% reliable, but very easy to control. And that, to me, is important. And that's part of the reason to go with a 5.56 AR. 5.56 is a very effective round, especially depending on your ammo selection. It can be very effective against soft targets. It also is very low recoiling and easy to shoot fast and accurate. 5.56 is great. It's lightweight. You can carry a lot of ammo on you really easily. There's a lot of benefits to 5.56. Yes, you can have something bigger at 308, even 7.62 by 39, but there are benefits to 5.56. It's also like the most easy ammo to find and the most affordable as far as rifle ammo. And so it just makes sense for the go-to rifle to be chambered in 5.56. Now the Geissele handguard. I chose the Geissele handguard for a couple reasons. For one, I love the way it looks. And there are choices on here that were aesthetic in nature, but also, function over form, but also form, right? So the Geissele handguard looks good, but if you look at the shape of it, it's shaped like a quad rail. It's a very strong shape. This handguard it's tough. It's beefy. It's, when you put your hand around it, it's not quite as comfortable as like a very slimline M-LOK handguard, but it definitely feels like you've got something solid in your hand without tearing it up with Picatinny like a quad rail. Nothing against quad rails. My next build is going to be a Mark 18 with a Riz 2 quad rail. But I do like that I can grab this and it just feels like something solid in my hand, like it's not going to bend or break. And there are a lot of good handguards out there. This is just the one that I chose. Now on this handguard, I put the Emissary handbrake. I really like vertical foregrips. The Magpul one's good. The BCMs are good. But I wanted to try out this Emissary handbrake, and I absolutely love it. I don't hold a foregrip like a broom handle. I mainly use it as a hand stop, something to pull the rifle into my shoulder, and this works great for that, and it looks cool. On top of that, I've got a mod light set up. This is the 18650 body, the PLH V2 head. I chose the PLH V2. It still has tons of candela, not quite as much as their other head, the OKW, but it's got a little bit more spill. It's got more lumens, and I actually like that. Especially if I'm doing anything close quarters, I like to kind of light up the area a little more than just having basically a laser beam. And this will still reach out as far as I think I would feel comfortable shooting at night. So I'm very happy with this light setup. It's not cheap. Good lights aren't cheap. Whether you choose Surefire, Mod Light, Cloud Defensive, Arasaka, Malkoff, they're all going to cost you some coin. I think if you do want to go cheaper with a light, the way to go would be Streamlight with like a ProTac HLX. And you can even get it set up with an adapter from Arasaka where you can run Surefire tail caps and switches. And in fact, I did that on my AR9. But speaking of tail caps and switches, I got the Surefire UE tail cap here and a mod button light. It's set up so that my thumb rides right where it needs to be, you know, when my hand is indexed properly on the emissary handbrake. Now going back from there, Voltor MUR upper receiver. Now I've heard people call it Ultor, I've heard it called Voltor. Don't get mad at me in the comments. I'm not sure which one is correct. But this upper has thicker walls than a standard mil-spec upper receiver. Technically that should make it stronger, but besides that, one of the things I really like about it is where your forward assist is located, it's farther forward. And so if I do have to use my charging handle on this side, that forward assist doesn't get in the way of it like it does on a mil-spec upper receiver. Now the FCD EPC, kind of just for looks. I mean, I think, you know, it's good to have a dust cover, obviously. I think any dust cover would work fine, but I like the EPC, looks good. Down from there, we have the ADM UIC lower receiver. And this lower is full ambi, so I can lock the bolt back with my trigger finger, drop it home with my trigger finger. It also has a mag release on the opposite side. Fully ambi, I love it. Full ambi with my radian safety, which I have set in the 45-degree mode. It's very quick that way. I can put it on fire, put it on safe. I like it. Full ambi with the charging handle as well. Also radian. Some of these things are things that I put on all of my guns. Now when it comes to the furniture, I really like this B5 system stuff. B5 Type 23 grip. It's very vertical as far as the grip angle, which to me is just more comfortable than something that's angled back, you know, really severely. I really like the B5 Systems Bravo stocks. You might notice a trend. I have them on pretty much everything. I think that they're great. And then the trigger here is a Geissele SDE. SDE is a two-stage trigger with a very light, crisp, or light, smooth take-up and an extremely light, crisp break. It's got a great reset. And so you can run the trigger really fast, almost like a single stage if you want to. But also when I'm taking longer shots, I can prep that take-up and, you know, just push through that crisp light break to break the shot. So it's very good for up close and personal or for longer distance engagements. Love this trigger. Optics setup here, EoTech and magnifier. Now, again, 14.5 inch and LPVO would have been appropriate on this gun as well. But I really like the quick 1x, you know, as far as target acquisition. The big clear window of the EoTech is fantastic. And I find myself using magnification not as often as 1x. And so that's why I went with this over an LPVO. And I'm really happy that I did. I still have a 3x magnifier. And what I've found is that within 200 yards, I can engage effectively with the magnifier just fine. As you get out past that, yeah, maybe a little more magnification would be good, but for what I've used this rifle for so far, I've been very happy with this. Now, you notice that the height over bore is pretty high, and that is due to the Unity setup here. It does set your optics up higher so that you can flip this to the center out of the way and still see over your magnifier and through your window. At first, I was worried about that. Now that I've been running it for a while, I actually really like my optics that high up, and I've been starting to put other things on risers as well. Yeah, you don't get quite as good of a cheek weld. It's more of a chin weld, but your head is up and you just kind of have better peripheral vision, which I think, again, in a shit hits the fan kind of scenario, I think that's important. I think you're probably going to end up doing more close quarters, fast, just scary kind of stuff than long distance. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I like to see what I'm doing, and I like this setup a lot. Now, the last couple things on this are the Geisley buffer setup. This is a Geisley buffer tube and the Super 42 setup. It's extremely reliable. It's actually quieter. The braided, spring, you don't hear that like twang that you do with just standard springs. And it's just good. It's soft shooting. It's reliable. It works. Geisley is well known for making very reliable stuff that's very high quality. And then the sling is a Blue Force Gear Vickers sling. It adjusts quick and easy, and it's just sweet. It's not padded. I don't really care about that. I don't feel like this rifle is that heavy. It does what a sling should do. And then I used BCM, QDs for it. BCM is high quality. All good. The thing with this rifle is that everything on it is high quality. It's not just meant to look Gucci or anything, but every part works together to make this very reliable and to make it very durable. And the way that it's set up is really good for up close. It's still short enough that hopefully, you can maneuver it around pretty easily, but it's long enough that you can still engage out to about as far as I would be comfortable engaging a target. This is my go-to rifle for a lot of those reasons. It's just really well built. You could build something like this for a lot less money if you want to, but you can also afford something like this if you just buy, like I did, one part at a time until you have a really nice gun. And then you're going to have something that you can totally trust. And that's important. And that leads me to my go-to pistol here. And it might surprise some of you because if you've been watching the channel, you know that my favorite pistol to shoot is my Prodigy, and that it's been perfectly reliable and I totally trust it. But my go-to pistol is actually my Smith & Wesson M&P. And for some reason, I just feel like the striker-fired system is something that I can trust. The Smith & Wesson M&P has a track record of reliability, whereas even though my Prodigy has been perfectly reliable, the Prodigy itself doesn't have as good of a track record of reliability. And while I feel like I can shoot the Prodigy better, more confidently, faster up front, more accurately from farther away distances, I can still shoot this one pretty well. I've owned this longer than any of the other guns that you see behind me. I've gotten to know it really well. And it's perfectly reliable. The M&Ps, they rival Glocks as far as reliability, but there's things about them that I like more than Glock. I like the grip angle better. I like the texture on the grip better. I think it has the best texture of any pistol pretty much ever. This thing is not going to move around in your hand. It's got that sandpaper texture. Now, I have changed a few things on this. This one came with the original hinged trigger design, and I hated it. So I changed it out for the Apex trigger, and this is so light, so smooth, so crisp. I think it's the best striker-fired trigger I've ever used, and I've shot Canics and Walthers, and their triggers are great. But this Apex trigger for the M&P is fantastic. And it's an easy upgrade to make. And then, of course, the standard things that I think everyone should have on a go-to handgun, a light and an optic. Now, my go-to handgun is a full size. It's not a concealed carry size handgun. Now, that's my go-to in regular life. I carry that thing everywhere with me. I'm talking about a situation where we really had to use our weapons, a situation that we never want to find ourselves in. And I want a duty-sized handgun for that because I feel more confident shooting it well. I can shoot it faster. I can shoot it more accurately than something that size. Now this gun didn't come optics ready. I had it milled so that I could direct mount the Holosun EPS. And another reason this is the go-to is because this is an enclosed emitter red dot, which just makes it that much more reliable. Nothing can get in there and block the emitter, rendering my optic useless. But even if something did happen, the deck height is so low, especially with no plate system, that I can co-witness those iron sights through the optic window, meaning that I could use this gun no matter what. A good light on it is the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. I use this on just about everything. I know people love the Surefire X300, and I do too, but I like the switches better on the TLR-1 HL. They're ambidextrous. You can use them from both sides. I always program the strobe feature out of it because I don't want to accidentally strobe someone. I like it to just be on when I want it on and off when I want it off. And the other reason that the M&P is my go-to handgun, I've had it so long, I have more accessories and holsters and everything for it than I do for anything else. And so I have my Core Essentials battle belt set up for this gun, where I've got an OWB holster that works well for it here. I've got mag pouches for M&P mags, extra AR mags. Now this belt setup obviously could be better. The belt itself I think is fantastic. I own a couple battle belts and I think that the Core Essentials belt it's definitely my favorite. It's got the same ratcheting system that you have on their EDC belts, and it's just a great setup. Of course, I probably need some medical on here, a dump pouch, other things like that. Right now it's mainly just set up for the range, but even if something popped off, I could throw this thing on and I've got 60 extra rounds of AR ammo. I've got 34 extra rounds of pistol ammo and my handgun on it. I can throw it around my waist, sling my rifle, and go. Now, as you guys know, I'm not the most tactical guy. I don't have a plate carrier. I don't have a helmet and nods, although I do plan to get that at some point. But you just never know what might happen. And so to me, it makes sense to build something as far as a rifle that's totally reliable, a handgun setup that you trust completely. And then that way, if some kind of situation arises, you really have, not that you have nothing to worry about, but at least you can trust your gear. And that's really important. As much as, I always like to talk about how these things are just fun to take out to the range and shoot, and they are. The whole point of shooting and practicing is to get good, to know what you can do with them. And if you don't have stuff that you can trust that's reliable, that kind of defeats the whole purpose. So this is my go-to rifle and pistol setup. I want to know what yours is. Let me know down in the comments. And make sure you subscribe to Sawtooth Tactical. Share this, like this. And from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.